Sometimes when the frosty winter starts to get to you, you start dreaming about sunny beaches. That's exactly what happened to us, and early one morning we took off on our way to Florida.
We don't need a destination, let's go where the river's taking us.
But that afternoon we found ourselves in the northern panhandle of Florida at the beginning of the Florida Adventure Trail, where we will meet up with friends and get ready for several days of adventure.
So what are you having?
We're having tacos.
Even though, you know, Bill drives you out of the tent sometimes, you're still doing tacos.
Still doing tacos. He's sleeping outside.
That's love, folks.
We're over there with you.
The rest of this evening will just be spent around the fire, getting to know each other and catching up, and also watching Aspen perform some of his new learned tricks.
112 the second day, and we went to LaSalle just to cool down. It was still 90. We went to bed that night. We sit up there in the hot tub.
Good boy.
10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, something like that. Come back in, woke up the next morning. I walked out, and I looked up. Leave our condo. Okay.
Good God. Good boy, Aspen.
No, my beard.
I've got one.
Now that it's longer, it's all screwed up. So there's no way that Marco's beard from Trail Recon looks like that without something like this. So we're gonna try it out.
See?
I mean, but since I'm a man, I don't need this. I don't know whose this was. It was on the picnic table when we got here. We were just checking it out.
Along with us for the trip were Jeremy and Kim in their white JK from Down South Off-road and Outdoors. Matt and Don would be in their gray JL. Teddy and Joanne were in their gray Gladiator. And a couple of familiar faces that you haven't seen on the channel in a while, Nancy and Alan, are back in their red JL. As soon as we left Hurricane Lake and headed south, we were met with trails through the amazing Florida landscape. This section of the Florida Adventure Trail goes through the Blackwater State Forest. Over the past year, we've been from everything from deserts to mountains to the lush greenery of the East Coast, but nothing compared to the way that this landscape looked.
Got a little bit of the
Spanish moss. As we made our way through the Blackwater Forest, we stayed right on the f.a.t. But looking at the map, you could spend several days in this area just exploring the trails around the Blackwater Forest. The trails in this area range from the sandy two-lane roads down to these narrow two-track trails. We made our way through the southern end of the state forest and into the state park. From there, it was on to our next point of interest, and that was the Eglin Air Force Base. As we got closer to Eglin, we pulled up the public access map on Avenza, just to make sure that the trails that go through there were legal for that particular day. As luck would have it, the western side of Eglin was cut off for military maneuvers, so we decided to go on across the sound at Navarre and check out some of the Gulf of Mexico. We already had our permits to be on the Eglin property, but their website says if you want to camp on it, you must come to the Jackson Guard station here and get your camping permit in person. They also have quite the little museum here that was pretty cool to check out. Since it was hunting season, there were very few spots available. We were able to pick up a site, and soon we will be off in that direction. So here's what we're trying to get to, these points of interest right here, but based on where we're at on the Avenza map and what's closed, we're not going to be able to get to those either. So I guess we're just going to meander our way back on over toward where we're going to be camping at. In addition to not being able to see some of the cool relics along Eglin Air Force Base, we were also going to have to contend with some Coddiwomple weather. I know you're thinking right now, well, what will be a trip with Coddiwomple without some rain? And you're exactly right, but the good thing was this was a Florida shower and it didn't last too long. Luckily for us, the rain shower didn't last very long, and it stopped just in time for us to take a walk and check out the remnants from a C-123 plane crash from 1968. According to the Bureau of Aircraft Accidents, the plane went down on January 25th of 1968. It had a crew of 4, and sadly all 4 lost their lives. The crew was completing a local training mission at Duke Field here. Following several touch-and-go maneuvers, they had completed a circuit at low height to start a new approach, when during the last turn the airplane stalled and crashed about a half a mile before their runway. It is believed that the approach speed was too low, causing the aircraft to stall during the last turn at low height. The distance between the aircraft and the ground was not sufficient for them to recover. We never really know what we're going to find on these adventures. It can be everything from the greatest thing in the world to realizing just how precious life is and how short it can be. After spending some time at the plane crash site, it was time to move on and find camp. We made it to camp just as the last of the thunderstorms were starting to move away from us. After we were sure there wasn't going to be any more rainstorms coming, everybody started setting up their camps and getting ready for dinner.
Muddy, a little bit muddy.
Oh, gosh, I got you on like zoomed in all the way on like 10.
Oh no.
What's we having?
We're having chicken and fried potatoes.
Yummy.
After dinner, everybody gathered up around the campfire again for the evening.
Bunks, but no bedding.
And I'll be honest, you know, we don't like people, but we've already decided we like everybody here. So if we ever, like you're yeah, he's like, look how good I'm being.
Yeah.
Right here.
People are just.
What they going over that knife?
You're a menace.
I am a
You're a menace with that knife.
No, it needed to pop.
You can do that little shimmy again, Alan. Let the world see it. YouTube needs this. I don't need that. What are we passing it for?
He wants to eat it.
Oh, here. Oh, hold on. Oh, shit. There you go.
It'll be fine.
That's what I thought. Also, this is how the Indians invented music. Is the Creed coming out in you? Are you about to get up and start dancing, Deb? Woo! Half Cherokee and Choctaw. Is your baby a Chippewa?
The majority of this morning will be spent on back roads and dirt roads between Eglin and Apalachicola. As we made it into Apalachicola, we stopped and had a picnic-style lunch. The picnic lunch didn't last very long as it was pretty cold outside. as the initial trails we got on in Apalachicola was just pretty much wide open. The deeper we got in, the better they became.
I quit doing that because I got my arm covered in mud, dude.
Keep your windows up, you know about the alligators.
And the further we ventured into the forest, the deeper the water holes got.
bad with all these expensive Jeeps getting pinstripes. Gotcha.
Once we got to the abandoned bridge, we got a chance to meet up with John Burkmeyer and the great group of people that he had brought with him.
Yeah, nice to meet you, man. Hey guys, how's it going? Hey, Brad Drew. Brad? Yep. Hey, John.
Some of the folks he had with him was Brad Drew from Overland Drew's YouTube channel. Also along for the trip was the YouTube channel Red-Eyed Jack. As we chatted, John was gracious enough to hook us up with some patches and the decals too.
I'm John. This is my Hi, Xterra here. I own a company called Sunshine State Adventure Co. We designed the Florida Adventure Trail. It's a 1,200-mile self-guided overland route similar to like the Georgia Traverse and Kentucky Adventure Trail and all the good ones, right? Or the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway, just did that recently. We've kind of challenged everybody that runs the f.a.t. to bring 2 bags with them. 1 bag for their trash and another bag for everybody else's.
We spent some time hanging out with John and his crew, and then we had to spend a little bit more time admiring this old abandoned bridge. By this time, the shadows were starting to stretch themselves out, and it was time for all of us to start getting to our respective camps. We said goodbye to everybody. They headed west while we headed east. As dark approached us, we approached the Tate's Hell Wildlife Management Area. While this area has a lot of primitive campsites, most all of them were taken by hunters where it was hunting season. We continued to search well into the night looking for a suitable campsite. Before it got too late, we managed to find a campsite right along the river. Tonight was going to be one of the coldest nights that we had had so far. Aspen even put his jacket on for the night.
Because we're in Florida and it's what, 42?
40. Yeah,
40?
Like cold enough he's shivering. Since it was so cold, Deb wanted to generate a little extra heat. That's right, pork chops and beans for dinner. We woke up the next morning to a view that was absolutely Florida. This was the perfect riverside campsite that we had been hoping for. The only thing that wasn't Florida was the temperature. As everybody got their morning stuff out of the way and fixed breakfast, they all took turns standing around the fire to stay warm.
I think I did.
Not put coffee in the coffee pot.
That's grounds.
Yeah, I did. It just looks light.
As you can see here, we actually added a Jeep last night. Late last night, we met up with Jeremy and B, who are actually from Florida, and are going to spend the next few days riding with us. Once everybody got packed up, it was time to hit the trail. Not far out of camp, we came upon these hunters with their dogs. We slowed down, let them gather the dogs up so we could safely get by. They obviously wasn't very happy that we were on the same road as they were.
How do you know if we got all of them? Look, they just pick them up by their neck.
So one of them guys down there said we hit his dogs.
No, we did not hit his dog. His dog ran out in front of me and I slammed on brakes and did not hit the dog. Because the dog was still running around the vehicle and tried to run back in front of the vehicle again while I was still.
morning, campers. Looks like it's a sunny 41 degrees outside today. It should be warming up into the 60s. We're going to be leaving the appropriately named Kate's Hill for the day and making our way on around the Emerald Coast down toward the Big Bend area. I hope you guys enjoy the day and I hope that we make it to camp before dark.
Yeah, apparently they got the road blocked here too.
Within a half mile of the first guy blocking the road, we ran into another pair of hunters who had their trucks in the middle of the road too.
How do you want to play this, guys?
We were not trying to be confrontational at all. We just simply wanted to enjoy ourselves in this area just the same as they did. So we drove on around, not knowing whether or not they were part of the other group. We wanted to stay as non-confrontational as possible and not stir up any more ill feelings. Once we left the WMA, we headed a little bit further south to ride along the coast a little bit more. One of our planned stop for today was going to be the Bald Point State Park. After we got to see a little bit of the coast, the f.a.t turned us right back into the woods, so we had a little bit more off-roading to do before we made it to the state park. As we made our way out of the forest, we made our way in to the Bald Point State Park.
We're going into this.
There was a couple different plans for here. The first one was to catch a view of the Gulf of Mexico again. The second one was to get a shower. According to the website, the state park had a shower available. It just didn't specify what kind of shower. Well, that might work for an associate channel that we're riding with, but I'm not sure I could talk Deb into taking a shower naked on that.
Yes, you can. We do this all the time. You just take a big towel, I hold it around, she showers, then she does the same. You're totally good, totally fine. Seriously, I've got a long big towel that will wrap around. You're saying no, but I'm telling you, you want to wash your butt?
I may have been able to talk Deb into that if it was June or July, but not in January, and I still really doubt I'd be able to anyway. And with foregoing the shower, it was time to move on to the beach.
With all the pieces.
After leaving the beach, we crossed the bay with our sights set on the Big Bend Wildlife Management Area. We had one small detour to make. We wanted to stop and pick up Joe and Misty from the Day We Make YouTube channel and Lady Overlander Radio. They just happened to be in the Florida area and wanted to hop on and go for a few days with us. We love having them along as they've been on several trips with us now. We met them at the Oslo River boat ramp. This was a beautiful place, and had it been later in the day, we probably would just camped right here. As pretty as that site was, we really had our sights set on another location. So we hit the road and started making our way there. For Marcella, it wasn't long before we were making our way into the Big Bend area. By this point, we had 8 rigs in our convoy. This was the largest group that we had ever had on a trip. The ride into Big Bend had a look that was totally different than anything we had ever seen. It was very tropical and wasn't anything like any other trail that we had been on. Once we were officially in Big Bend, it opened up into a very vast salt marsh area. This was the perfect place to put up the drone.
All right. So what has happened, Bill?
So I started to lift the drone and it went out, and I watched it on the screen turn and go straight down.
Straight down the line.
Kim and I both tried to retrieve the drone, but it was just too wet and swampy. I sunk up to my knees. It wasn't going to happen. After not being able to retrieve the drone, we continued our way around to the observation tower. In addition to there being multiple areas with picnic tables, there's this awesome observation tower to check out.
I can make this jump. Whoa, that's a little wobbly. You want to take it easy there?
Oh.
You just grab a parachute. Oh, the sun feels good.
Yes.
Oh, it's cold. Oh, the sun feels good.
Yeah, it sucks.
Bill, you should have just stayed in Kentucky.
Right?
I'm leaving.
As the sun was getting lower in the sky, we continued to make our way out of Big Bend. We knew at this point we were not going to make camp by dark. We knew where we wanted to be. We were just hoping that it was available when we got there. The Florida sunshine was sure shining on us tonight. We got the exact camp spots that we were looking for. It was later than we wanted to be getting here, and it was colder than we really would have liked to have been. But everybody was excited to see what daylight would bring us. We had woken up to the frosty paradise of Shard Island. This is the last public place on the beach that you can camp in Florida, and we had to take a walk after breakfast. After taking our stroll along the beach, we packed everything up and headed out for another day's adventure. When we left camp, we headed south through the Lower Swanee Wildlife Refuge. The plan for today was to explore through the Devil's Hammock and Goethe State Forest. Joe and Misty had left us early that morning, but they were planning on returning and getting back up with us for camp tonight. Once we made it into the Devil's Hammock area, we stopped and had lunch along the trail. With our bellies full, we were right back to exploring. After leaving the Devil's Hammock, it was just a short section of blacktop before we got off-road and started making our way on into the Goethe State Forest. making our way south, Joe and Misty had taken care of the errands that they needed to, and they were making their way north. We met up with them about halfway through Gothi, and that was not too much farther to make it on south, and then we were going to try to camp in the Citrus WMA. As we traveled along, we discussed the issue that we had at the prior WMA that we camped at, and thought that maybe we had better pick another place. Joe and Misty had camped in this area quite a bit, and they knew some spots. As we made our way to the blacktop, we put Misty in the lead and let her show us the way to camp. Straight in front of you, there's a smoke trail that goes straight up, and we're trying to figure out if that might have been the SpaceX launch.
Oh, cool.
It just took a little bit of research to find out. In fact, that was the SpaceX launch, and we had missed it by about 40 minutes. It always seems to be a struggle for us to find camp at daylight, especially during the winter time, and tonight was no different. We hit it pretty close tonight. It was only about 6:30 when we got into camp. After everybody got camp set up for the night, it was time for supper, and Deb had a special surprise.
What are you making, Deb?
We are making a shrimp boil.
That sounds good.
It is good. What's it got in it?
Not that piece of corn.
5-second roll. Pick it up real quick.
Hurry up.
Blow it
It'll
off,
boil
and
off.
It'll be good. That's right. There you go.
We've had worse, I'm sure.
That's it.
After all.
Just put
Oh, shit.
watch your legs.
Yep, you seen that right. We had to start all over. But this time we used a little more sturdy grill. Nobody was going to let an entire pot of spilt food spoil the night. And yes, we did rinse it off before we recooked it. After a minor delay, it was time to pour the water off and let the feast begin.
It's okay.
What'd you get, jumbo? You want to come get your jumbo shrimp? Well, that looks terrible. I don't know if y'all should.
You'll notice here how the group is patiently waiting with plates in hand.
Oh, Debbie, you're
Where you want the bread? Down there?
sure.
Our pork is good.
Sure. It's stressful sometimes. So we went racing back to where we started out. We do.
Gunnery exercise? We were shooting a 76 millimeter 3-inch gun at a...
The next morning, it was even frostier than the night before. We woke up to 26 degrees in Central Florida. Even though it was cold, they had found us the perfect place to camp at the Flying Eagle Preserve. Hey Siri, open Gaia. As we started another day, we headed back west to get back on the Florida Adventure Trail. We had moved off of it just a little bit to find camp.
Okay, they're gone. Here, come here. Here.
I'm not quite sure what they are. They're cranes, but I don't know what kind. Josh is saying sandhill cranes. I'm not sure.
The excitement of the sandhill cranes was just too much for Aspen. He had to have a nap. Again this morning, we were only on blacktop for a very short time before we made our way back onto dirt and into the citrus WMA. We were really looking forward to this section as it's supposed to be one of the better off-road sections of the whole trail. Aspen's nap didn't last very long. As soon as we got off-road, he was ready for more adventure. In addition to the trails, there were a couple other points of interest in the citrus. One of the ones that we couldn't pass up was the Jeep Cave. We had to stop, take a hike, and check it out.
Oh, okay. So the other trail up a little further probably goes straight to it.
Come on, Bill, we have free candy in here. Come on. Free candy.
Is it a room?
Yeah,
It's not a cross.
it's pretty cool. You don't want to fall down in this thing, though, I can tell you that.
Oh, wow. That's pretty neat.
What are you doing, Bill?
Come out of it.
Bill's being birthed again, coming out of the earth. That's pretty cool, huh?
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, you just climbed out of the cave.
I'm not climbing that.
You what?
Not doing it. It's slick.
It ain't that slick.
What? I did it, never did on it.
Got to use both sides. There's a handhold right behind your head.
That's pretty darn neat.
Right behind you is a root. top, up, right there.
He did it without.
And not to be outdone by us young pups, Alan had to give it a shot too.
It's a little slick.
So here's a fun fact for you. Alan turned 80 just shortly before this trip.
Well, that's true.
If we can only be as fortunate as Alan and Nancy to be as active and energetic as they are at their age.
Don't grab. I'm not. I'm on. If you start slipping, I'm gonna grab. Yeah. Where is the next? There it is.
There's a good one. Got a root right here.
Look over there. Be careful.
I gotta put his foot on the back there.
I need sticky boots. My next foot is going right there, but I don't know if I can fold that far. That's what I had to do. I put my knee there. Okay.
All right.
That other one was.
When we made it back to the trailhead, we went ahead and had some lunch before we got back on the road.
That other trail looked like.
Joe, when we get to camp, I think we need to tighten my tent down or something. I hear some rattling.
And it's your muffler, is it?
Alright, we'll take a look at it.
So that's that Toyota emblem about to fall off.
I can't do it. You do it.
It's probably that Toyota emblem about to fall off.
Rude.
Yeah, we got a pretty good shot right here. Got two signs that says "Red close to vehicles."
And them up there anyway.
Yeah. As we turned into this wide spot, we stopped when we seen the signs saying no vehicles, but we couldn't help to notice the person giving the perfect example of how things get shut down. The next section of trail that we had got onto had a little bit of mud. I could see in a wetter season that these could be pretty treacherous. We were fortunate it had been pretty dry before we got here.
I wonder how deep that one is.
Even with it being dry, there's some that I had second thoughts about sticking my nose in.
That's deep, ain't it?
Yeah, I seen that.
That one's a no-no there.
As we approached the southern end of the management area, we did find this little washout, and it was quite fun to play on.
Down that side. Okay. Down. Coming down this side. Turn that way. Touched it. Passenger.
Easy, slow.
Carrying a wheel.
Before we made it completely out of citrus, we stopped, lined all the vehicles up, and took a really good picture. This is where Jeremy and B left us, and they had to make their way back home while we made our way on towards camp. We would end up finding an incredible camp at Lake Door inside the Ocala National Forest. And we actually made it to this one before it got dark. We can find something here.
This right there is fine.
Yeah. Come down to that road, make your next right. We've got a spot.
Back in there, or?
Well, camp wasn't right on the water. It was still plenty close enough to be able to walk over and enjoy an incredible sunset. The only problem with this campsite was the amount of trash.
Dogs have better sense than that.
People don't do this.
As the sun continued to set, we found some logs that had been down and cut them up and got ready for a fire for the night. As everybody finished dinner, we couldn't keep our eyes off the sunset and couldn't keep Josh out of the water.
What are you doing, Josh?
Catching some minnows and crayfish.
We've had pretty good weather along the trip so far, and it looked like today wasn't going to be any different. As a matter of fact, it looked like it was going to be better. We've been in Florida for several days at this point, and we just couldn't get over the landscape. The way the Spanish moss hung off the live oak trees was just really cool. At this point, we started realizing that the trail was a little different than it had been in the past. We were starting to see a lot more of the soft sand.
These trails are just really, really cool. It's fun back in here.
It's soft right here too.
Yeah.
I think it stopped. I was trying to record it.
Don't feel bad, Nancy. I had to go to 4-wheel too.
Well, this sand is not impassable at all. You definitely do need four-wheel drive. Some ground clearance and lower tire pressure would probably help too. And as you heard on the radio, everybody was having a great time in this sugar sand. Continuing north, we started seeing icons for mud and water. So far, things have been pretty dry, but we were looking forward to seeing what was coming. And as we got to the first mud hole, it was in fact pretty dry. This was the one with the big mud splat on the map.
This is marked as a big old mud hole.
As we made around the curve to the next icon on the map, we found that this water hole wasn't quite so dry. Looks like we got a stuck one down here.
Yeah, we'll be going around that.
We put ourselves in position to help if they needed it, but it looked like they had a plan. This would have been a perfect opportunity to use a kinetic rope instead of just a tow strap. A kinetic rope would give you a little bit more of a rubber band effect rather than having that sudden shock load. In this case, the shock load didn't break anything and they were able to get their buddy out.
Cool.
One of you bigger ones will come out here and get it.
I was going to let you do what you was going to do, and then I was going to offer to help, but
It's 4 cylinders working good.
there you go. After a short chat, we were on our way and decided to go around where they had been stuck. That one wasn't the only one holding water on this trail. This one didn't look like it had a whole lot of water in it, but it was definitely a little thicker than what I had planned on.
deep. Go that way. Yeah, the tire is mud. The spare tire was in the.
I'll probably high center because y'all are higher than me.
Yeah, the spare tire was in the mud.
This section of trail was definitely the muddiest that we had seen in the last couple of days, especially since we had gotten out of the swamp in the Apalachicola National Forest. Dodging a few mud holes, apparently we worked up an appetite, so we stopped for lunch. Did I mention what a nice day it was? After a quick bite to eat, it was back to more semi-dried up mud holes. In addition to the mud holes, we had started finding a couple places where water had ran and created a ditch or a little bit of a washout and an off-camber situation. While this wasn't anything that was super difficult or wasn't doable, it was definitely a good contrast compared to the flat stuff that we had been on.
That kind of felt a little bad. It got a little close. 20 degrees.
20. Yeah. 20 degrees.
Which means we still had 4 or 5 more degrees before we really started to worry a little bit.
As we drove deeper into the forest and trying to decide where to set up camp, we noticed this prescribed burn. We went up, made sure that it wasn't going to be close to an area that we were going to camp at, and then picked a spot out along Hopkins Prairie.
Right here, that's wide open. I'll pull off in here, Bill, if you want to run down and check on down.
There are multiple campsites along Hopkins Prairie, but we wanted to try to find one where we could get to water and set up a shower for the evening.
Are you guys going to check out another camp?
Yeah, if you want to, Joe, just hang out there and we'll be right back. We're going to run down here and see if we can get a little better access to water.
All right, gotcha.
This is pretty through here, isn't it?
We were lucky enough to find a great place down next to a canoe launch. This was going to be the perfect place to set up our Joolca, have a nice hot shower, and enjoy the rest of the evening before we all made our long trip back home. Hopkins Prairie is definitely a beautiful area, and it was a perfect place for us to have our last night camp. This place looks a lot more like you're in an African safari than you are in the United States.
What are you cooking us? Steak. Some potatoes look good.
Do you have any seasoning? I have pepper and salt.
Yeah.
So.
Let me get.
We're going to have chicken tacos and then maybe a chicken taco salad.
So y'all doing chicken
Yummy.
tacos too?
All right. What you having, Teddy?
Chicken, tacos, and bacon wrapped steak tacos.
What you cooking, Joe?
I got chicken soup, and some baked beans
Oh, yummy.
over here in the with the red light.
After everybody had a shower and a great meal, we sat around one last fire on a gorgeous winter Florida night. The next morning, we spent a little bit of extra time around camp before we all went our separate ways heading home. After our speckled alarm clock told us it was time to get out of bed, we got up and found ourselves in what sounded like a tropical rainforest. We didn't spend much time at all around camp before we got out and hit the trail. The plan for today was to explore the Ocala National Forest and meet up with some more friends for camp tonight. If you haven't been following us on the other social medias, then you're probably noticing our setup's a little bit different. Yep, that's a skinny guy camper on the back of the Gladiator. This is the first one out of production, and we're very honored to be able to test it and put it through its paces for them. Charles in the F-250 also has one of the skinny guys on the back of his truck. So the map says that this section trail right here has some pretty deep mud holes on it. I'm guessing that back there, those dips that we just came through were probably the deep water holes.
I could see that.
Now we've been pretty fortunate, I guess, that we've hit all of the Florida Adventure Trails so far in a fairly dry season. Now, it's very well marked as far as where the wet places are, or where at least they usually are. And we thought that we had pretty much escaped all of the deep water holes. Yeah, I can see there being some water through here.
Yeah, I could too.
So out of all of the mud holes that we had seen that were dried up, this one certainly was not dry.
Oh no!
Now the Gladiator came through it really easy, but Charles's F-150 was not so lucky. Now he is on 35-inch tires and it is four-wheel drive, but he just absolutely bottomed out in this hole. With all momentum lost, it was time to throw the old Ford a line. Rather than setting up the winch for a pull, we just attached a 30-foot tow strap and a kinetic OVS rope and got him out really easy. After draining the water and a few tadpoles out of Charles's truck, we continued on down the trail. It wasn't long before I noticed in my rearview mirror that he was dragging something. What we thought that may have been just some debris from that water hole actually was his gas tank straps.
What are you doing, Bill?
So, that last mud hole that we just went through, we thought Charles got stuck, and he did, but he also got stopped dead in his tracks. And once we got him out and started down the road, realized that he was dragging something. And what he was dragging was the straps from his gas tank. Now, apparently, the back one that he had on there already had been ripped off at some point, and he had a ratchet strap holding the back one on. Well, we ripped the front one and the back one and the ratchet strap off. And it's at this part of the episode where we talk to you about having extra recovery gear and things like ratchet straps with you. We didn't have very many with us, so I had to repair the one he had and then use the only other one we had left to hold his gas tank up. After a little bit of swamp repair and getting cleaned back up, we were right back after it. We haven't seen a whole lot of wildlife on this trip, but we did get to see, I guess, a pretty rare sight, and that is the gopher tortoises. After doing some research when we got back, these are actually endangered, and they're not supposed to be very many of them, but on this particular day, we seen 3 different ones.
They're like, they look like a box turtle, but they're really big.
Oh, I don't know.
After making our way north of the Ocala National Forest, we met up with our friend Joe from the Day We Make. From there, we were going to make our way to the Bootlegger Campground, where we would meet his wife Misty and their son Josh. They're great friends of ours, and you've actually seen Joe quite a bit on the channel as he spent a lot of time with us out west last year. And Misty's been on the channel a lot as well, and she also does the Lady Overlander Radio podcast. We made it to camp early, and it was great because that gave us time to relax and get ready for the next few days.
The camping area.
You may notice, in addition to having Joe with us, we've now picked up another rig. That Toyota Tundra with the Skinny Guy is Justin and Michelle from Skinny Guy Campers and Misplaced Overland. As the sun was getting lower in the sky, we found an incredible campsite and decided this was going to be home for the night.
Right, start over. Omni oven, hard case. What comes with lid with the little holes so you can put your thermometer. Kind of tells you like a little oven what your thermometer or temperature gets up to when you have it on. So it's kind of nice. Then it has the base on the bottom, which you kind of want to get it warmed up. I don't know any specific. I mean, I just get it warmed while I'm getting my food. Then you stick your main cooking pan on there, which looks like a bunt. I would assume bunt pan. I'm not a baker.
Right. Yeah.
So would you call bunt pan?
I'd call that a bunt pan.
Okay. So you can cook on it. I've cooked food directly in it. Nachos.
Okay. Is it better if you have?
They say, because there's a Facebook group that's phenomenal.
Okay.
This came because I bought it as a kit with 2 liners. They say save one for sweet, one for savory, because the salt and the stuff will make one taste like it because it's silicone liners.
Right.
I've used them both for sweet.
Okay.
And then I've just used this one for like regular foods. That's just me. And I spray it like I'm spraying a cookie sheet. So this one just has a grease stain in it from something else. And then it also came with a baking rack. But last night I tried it, I actually took parchment paper and I cut it. And I just cut a hole in it last night. So it slid down on there. It actually was really good because then my cookies didn't kind of
fall through.
Yeah. And my cinnamon rolls cooked better because then it had heat. Okay, because this bakes like a convention oven or a convection oven. The heat comes through this hole, up through the pan, kind of comes through when the lid's on, just bakes the food. So, got 3 choices. I think they make more. They have muffins. They have like a little 4 divider pan. They have lots of different cookies.
Lots of different.
Yeah. So, I've done cinnamon rolls, cookies, nachos. I think meat, some kind of meat with casserole in it. So.
That's great.
But there's a Facebook group that's really, really cool that makes you want to cook a bunch. I just ain't done it.
So what are you going to make for us tonight?
We're going to try monkey bread. Pull apart,
monkey bread.
With Pillsbury dough, pull apart, and some cream, sauce cream. Cinnamon. Yeah, so I don't know. Never done it.
We'll try it.
And then chocolate chip cookies, because I know those don't fail.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. They're used their skills again for the 3rd time this weekend.
Call 911 as soon as you see catch on fire.
That is perfect.
Ta-da!
What? That looks good.
Smell-o-vision. You'd smell it, folks.
Right. And it smells really good.
Yeah.
That's dinner, guys.
Yeah. And some chocolate chip cookies together.
And cookies, yeah. We'll do those next.
After a long weekend and getting our bellies full of monkey bread and cookies, some of us didn't even make it to bed before we went to sleep. The next morning, we spent a little bit of extra time around camp. Nobody was wanting to leave, as this was going to be our last day on the trail before everybody headed their own way.
You guys, you and your son laugh at the craziest shit. That's not funny. And I'm like, it is. It's totally funny.
As the fog burned off, we started burning fuel. It was time to get to know the Osceola National Forest.